Hello everybody, and welcome to this live stream event of What is Regeneration. My name is Damon Gamo. I am a filmmaker and co-founder of the Regenerators platform, and I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm coming to you today from the lands of the Arakwal people on the Bundjalung Nation, which is on the east coast of Australia, and acknowledge what incredible gift we have in this country to have an Indigenous culture that is at least 60,000 years of acute observational science of understanding the landscape, but also a deep spiritual connection to the landscape that we would be crazy not to integrate into our Western thinking at this moment. We have over 1,500 people joining, signed up for this call from around the world, which is just wonderful. We have watch parties happening in different parts of the world. There's school groups tuning in. So a huge thank you for all taking part and really willing to learn and understand more about regeneration as a concept. I also want to start by acknowledging that really regeneration isn't a new term. It has been used largely by Indigenous cultures for most of their existence. They didn't name it that, of course, but they certainly lived a very regenerative lifestyle. But in the last 3 decades, we've really seen the word start to enter the mainstream. And we just want to start by acknowledging some of the pioneers in that space. It's certainly not a new idea. People like Paul Hawken, who's on our call today, Janine Benyus, Kate Raworth, Joe Brewer, Dominic Hess, who's also joining us today, Laura Storm, Bill Reed. There's lots of people that have already been doing this wonderful work, and it's just terrific that it's getting the attention that it so thoroughly deserves. There's no doubt most of you are joining this call because you understand the predicament we're in. Regeneration really is our only meaningful pathway forward. We've got to a point now with this system, an incredibly complex industrial system that we've built up over the last 250 years, really built at a time with endless available finance, endless material use in a period of ecological stability, and we really awakened this fossil fuel army to build this enormous system for us, but it is ill-equipped to deal with the future that we face, a future of more ecological instability, many countries now in debt, and as many of you will know, we're certainly hitting our boundaries with our material use now, that we really have to do things differently, and that's where the idea of regeneration can come in. It's a new approach to how we treat each other, how we treat the living world. And the hope is that as the old system starts to unravel, which we're starting to see now in particular, we've certainly seen over the last few years, the fragility of that system. The hope is that this new regenerative system can emerge as the other one falls away, so that we can gently land the plane in the field and not crash it into the mountain. And a key flaw of the current system is really how little it values life, the sacredness and the preciousness of life. We demean and ridicule life, we exploit and we extract life, we reduce it to data, we commodify it, and we really ignore and demote the preciousness of what it is. And I think that Paul Hawken in his new book has expressed that so eloquently, that regeneration simply prioritises life. It puts life back at the centre of our governance, our economy, and of course our education. And it shouldn't be that hard for us because regeneration is the default mode of life. Every cell in our body is constantly regenerating. And we've all seen what happens to a forest after a fire. In the words of Albert Schweitzer, I am life that wills to live amidst life that wills to live. And I think that perfectly sums up regeneration. So we've got a wonderful panel for you today. We're going to have a bit of a chat to that panel, and then we'll show you the film, and then we'll open up to some questions for you. So at any point, if you feel like a question that you want to ask, just feel to write it in the comment section, and we'll get it to you as soon as we've screened the film. It's only a 5-minute film, so it's very short, and then we'll have a lot of time to take some of your questions. Unfortunately, one of our panelists, or a couple actually, but Chief Djuma Sipaya has had to withdraw at the last minute. Obviously, there's a lot going on in her country of Brazil, and especially with the Amazon, especially in recent events with obviously a change in leadership there. That hopefully has some huge positive implications for the Amazon and for the rest of the world, given how important the Amazon is as part of our hydrology and the water pump for the whole planet. And we've also had Anna Kernahan, who was joining us from Dublin very, very late at night. She's had to withdraw at the last minute, but we do have a very worthy replacement. So to kick things off, I want to introduce Christy Druckmann to you. Christy is a very passionate activist who runs a very successful online multimedia series called Brown Green Girl, and she really explores the intersectionality between race and culture and climate. So huge welcome to you, Christy. Thanks for joining us. I might just kick off with you, Christy, and because regeneration has lots of different connotations for different people. So I'd love to hear what your interpretation is. What does regeneration mean to you?
I'm currently located on the stolen lands of the Anacostan people here in Washington, D.C. at this moment. And I would say for me, regeneration is the principle that everything needs to return back to itself. And in every aspect of, living beings, we come here to thrive, to give back, to build the collective. And I think regeneration is built in those principles of collectivism, of connection, and ultimately to leave places better than where we came to them, and to always think about these principles of circularity, of abundance, that are all rooted a lot in indigenous wisdom. And I think it's really important that if we are to embrace, a regeneration, that it starts with listening to the voices of indigenous people who have been displaced from their lands, who have so much wisdom and a roadmap of what regeneration looks like. And it's just up to us to really listen and to follow our hearts and minds to make that happen and make that possible.
Beautiful. And a lot of your work, Christy, is around storytelling and intersectionality. And I know I'm probably on your team here, I'm quite biased, but can you just talk about why you think storytelling is so important in this moment? And in particular, who are telling those stories, which you just alluded to in your previous answer?
I would say that storytelling is so critical because I think the climate crisis is also a crisis of imagination. It's a crisis where we are not able to envision what the solutions necessarily are, even though there's so many examples of it happening around the world every day. There's so many case studies and solutionaries around the world. But do we hear from those people? Do we know who those people are and what that actually looks like? Not so much. The mainstream media is focused on a lot of this doom and gloom and climate anxiety narrative, which of course has its place. But where does that get us? It leaves us in a state of feeling so powerless, and that there's nothing that we can do, and that there's not the need to invest and empower our communities to take action. And I think that that's a false narrative being sold by people with power, privilege, and extractive agendas to keep us powerless. And it's up to us to use storytelling to flip the script on that, to instead realize that we do have the power in ourselves and our communities to rethink what those solutions are. And again, it comes back to this listening piece, listening to Black, Indigenous, people of color around the world, stewards of the land, people who directly interact with the soil day to day, understand what it takes to protect our ecosystems, to draw down carbon, to figure out what it looks like to give back to the earth. That requires so many conversations, so much dialogue and resources that I just don't think is being put out at the rate that it needs to for people to click. Of course, there's amazing books, there's literature, there's academia, but do we have time to get that to as many hands as possible? Maybe not. So I think stories are really important from an anecdotal perspective to really personalize and actualize what a regeneration actually looks like. And so I would say that storytelling is at the root of all of this. And that's kind of why we're here on the panel today, is to tell new stories about how we can exist as a society in such a pivotal, game-changing moment as the one we're in right now. Is what is the barriers to our imagination? How do we break those down? And how do we create space and support for all of us to dream big? Because that's exactly what we need right now.
Beautiful. Thank you for that answer, Christy. I'm going to introduce AY Young now, because AY is a living example of this, of using his skills to amplify and tell new stories and sing new stories. So AY is a musician. He's the founder of the Battery Tour, which is a tour that uses renewable energy to power his concerts. He's also recently become a UN Global Youth Leader, the only one representing the United States. And he is an effervescent and wonderful character. So AY, thanks for joining us. Do you want to give a little insight as well as to what regeneration means to you?
Yo, yeah, thanks, Dan, man. So good to be here and supporting this incredible thing that you're doing and putting together and changing the world. But yeah, guys, for me, like regeneration, I mean, it's great. I really got my definition from Paul, just spending time around Paul, and I was kind of working on an anthem for regeneration. It was this the way I understood it was this like concept of like every choice, like if you could, like, every choice you make, you can bring life. And I come from a place where people talk about sustainable artists and sustainable music, and to me, it's always like use less water, use less food, or sustain. This kind of concept of sustainability, and like the region kind of blew my mind because like, what if every choice you make, if I'm gonna go travel here, or I'm gonna go do this, I'm thinking about how can I bring more life, and I think that's like regeneration to me, for sure.
And mate, in terms of the role as a musician and how you're using your skills to really get this message out there and try and get people in their hearts and to sing and to celebrate what regeneration is, can you tell us how important that is for you and what response you've got to some of your concerts where you have performed this type of anthem and showed and tried to articulate this messaging? And maybe you can tell us why you don't think more artists are doing this. How can we get more storytellers and songwriters to start singing about these concepts?
Yeah, totally. At the end of the day, I always say like, it's got to be dope. It's got to be cool. And I'm just now seeing, in my opinion, like this paradigm shift where you have to stand for something. Nowadays, like I see companies, artists, people, if they're not speaking on a subject, they're getting canceled, they're in trouble. So, I'll never forget the time, like I was scrolling through Instagram, I was telling somebody this today, and I think some dude had like a plastic straw. And I mean, the comments were crazy. They were because he had a plastic straw. So it's definitely becoming cooler to, do yoga, to eat healthy, to, kind of go with, take care of yourself, or do something sustainable, or stand for something, right? Whether it's, stand for something, right? So I think that the shift is coming where now culture has to be a part of that. And I think that I'm just an example to other artists and other people of how to do it differently. Well, you can power a concert using renewable energy. I did 900, right? Like you can use your music to make an impact and not just a bunch of money for a bunch of gold chains and, whatever. Like, so, right. So I've used the concerts to bring energy to 17 countries, right? Use the music as a vehicle to power change. And I just think that we need people, the people watching, people listening, to initiate artists are doing, that is impactful with music, and I think it'll keep becoming cooler. And I won't be so cool anymore.
Oh man, thank you, brother, and look forward for everyone to see your performance later today. So I'll get you introduced that when the time's right. But thank you for joining us, Paul. I might ask you to switch on now. I think Paul Hawkins with us, who probably doesn't need much of an introduction to many of you. He's really been a pioneer in the environment movement for a long time, an activist, a writer, entrepreneur, all sorts of things. He has no less than 6 New York Times bestsellers, including Project Drawdown and his most recent book, Regeneration. So, Paul, thank you for joining us. Welcome. Are you well?
Oh, well, thank you. I'm really enjoying this, actually. First of all, Christy, kudos to you. I haven't heard you speak before, but it always brings tears to my eyes. Your understanding, the breadth, the comprehension. It took me a long time to learn what you know like this. And so I just want to really acknowledge that. And AY has brought so much joy in my life. When we met, I don't know, 3-4 years ago in Kansas City, and I felt like he's a brother I never had. I never had a brother. And I know he's taller and better looking, but nevertheless, and younger, but nevertheless, I still feel like he's my brother in every way. And so he's really joined our board. He's on our board of directors. And so we're so blessed to have you, AY. And Damon, too, I just want to say, we work together. We talk a lot. We share our triumphs and our mistakes and everything, and it's such an honor to actually have you there in Oz, and us here, and for us to collaborate and just imagine together and so forth. I just feel like regeneration does go back in my career as a word, but it wasn't really a word. It was just like, I spent so much time outside, and it's just, there it is, it's not like, what is it? Just go outside. And so we come to you, I come to you from the unceded lands of the coastal Miwok here in California. And we had over 50 different beautiful California, and that just knew the state backwards and forwards, and they understood the ecology, the fire ecology, the critters, the creatures, and they did something which Lila June has described in her essay, but they became keystone species. They were keystone species. In other words, they lived in such a way that their troth, their promise, was to leave the land more bountiful, more abundant, than what they found, and so forth. And this was generation after generation after generation, and no one thought twice about doing it differently. I mean, that's what. And as Lila June said, a Dene woman who's on our board as well, she said that from our point of view, human beings were a beautiful expression of planet Earth. And it's such a different narrative. We just hear how we're screwing up, and we are, and how we're stupid, we are, and how we let powerful pathological liars take power, we are. But it just occludes, it covers everything up, that is so beautiful about being a human being. And to me, regeneration is at the very heart. It is the default mode of nature, but it's our default mode as well. It comes from our heart. It's into being a human being. And has it been covered up? And have we become extracted and extractors? Yes, we have. We were taught it. It's being done to us. But what I feel when I listen to you, Christy, and also, what you've done, AY, and what you're doing there at the Regenerators and so forth, this is an emergent movement. This is an emergent movement. And we're at a moment when we will look back at this time and say, God, we seem so few and so fragile, and there wasn't many of us, whatever. We will be. Is the only path forward. You said it, Damon. The only path forward for humanity. And if we don't take that path forward, to honor the 5,000 indigenous cultures and respect them and don't open ourselves up to the wisdom that's right here on planet Earth, available at all times, if we don't, produce, if we don't, create a world that's safe and sacred for women and children, if we don't bring back our it's connected and meaningful to people, and obviously, if we don't, just respect the integrity of every single ecosystem on Earth and so forth. If we don't do these things, we don't deserve to be here. And so we want to be here. We know how to be here, which is to create more life. It is and that's the choice we have every single moment, every single day. So it's just thank you, all three of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, mate. And Paul, thank you for the language that you've provided for so much of this, and the ability for others to share that and communicate it. It's been just wonderful, not just with the recent book, but through a lot of your work. So terrific to work with you, and great to have you here. And I think what you said then was really important, that this is an emergent movement. And what I love about it is that it's completely decentralized. There is no central leadership. It is inclusive. Right. There's farmers doing it. There's people in the fashion industry doing it. There's people in the finance community that are doing it. This idea of regenerative is coming through really quickly. And so we do need to all stick together and honor the community that's already been formed. On that note, I'll bring in Dominic Hess, because Dominic really has been a leader in regenerative thinking for a long time. She's probably seeing all this stuff start to happen and gone, well, yep, come on, let's get on with it. She's the author of 6 books, and she's published more than 100 articles. She's also chairman of the board of an organisation called Greenfleet here in Australia. So, Dominic, thank you for coming in at such late notice, but you're a worthwhile guest. Do you want to share, I guess, firstly, what regeneration means to you, because you've obviously been in this space for a bit longer than others?
Hi. Much for having me, and I'm calling from the lands of the Boonwurrung people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and Pei Julibrook, which is the local language for respect to elders past, present, and emerging, including all of the wonderful people online. It's this film, and Damon knows how much I love it, and excited to be here as part of the launch of it. So, what does regeneration mean for me? It's not really the word. I'm seeing it bubbling up everywhere. For me, it's not really the word, but the intention behind it. I think what we want to do is have a positive contribution to whatever the future looks like. I think We want to have a positive agency over the future. Instead of feeling bad and thinking the world will be better off without humans. Beautiful language, Paul. We want to be exquisite parts, keystone species of the future. Oh, love it. And I think this film really explains where we feel engaged and energized in how we could step up to that role. So thank you, Damon, and everyone who's contributed to that. This is such an exciting time.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dom. Well, that feels like a very good segue. I might ask all of you to turn off your cameras and your microphones while we do screen the film. And before we play it, again, I do want to give a big shout out. This has been an incredibly collaborative effort, from co-writing with Paul to co-directing with Nick Meyer, who's on the call today, to all of our team who helped organise this and send camera crews right around the world to get it happening, even during a period of COVID. And again, to the graphic artists, you'll see some incredible animations in this piece, and a lot of those graphic artists gave up their work for us to use in this piece to make it feel bold and exciting and fresh, which is what the regeneration movement really is. So without any further ado, this is officially the world premiere of the What is Regeneration film, and we'll see you after for some questions.
We are being called to come together.
We're all being called.
We are being called
to come together. To come together. To connect.
To connect. To connect. And to regenerate.
Regenerate.
To connect and to regenerate.
This is a call to the citizens of this planet. What is regeneration?
What is regeneration?
Regeneration puts life
Life at the center of every act and every decision.
We've inherited an economic system that is extractive and degenerative.
Vital connections have been severed between human beings and nature.
This disconnection and degeneration has brought us to the brink of an unimaginable crisis.
Degeneration is stealing the future.
Regeneration is healing the future.
A regeneração é o único caminho a seguir.
The only path forward. Regeneration means infusing our towns and our cities with nature.
Rewilding our
Towns and cities.
Transportation that cleans the air and calms the spirit.
Cleans the air and
Calms the spirit.
Regeneration brings our soils back to
Our
life.
soils back to life.
Regeneration creates locally operated renewable energy systems everywhere.
To enable people to take the energy transition into their own hands and make the planet cleaner.
Regeneration means bringing First Nations knowledge to the forefront.
Embracing indigenous wisdom.
Indigenous story and Indigenous voices.
Essential knowledge systems that we need to live in harmony and address the crisis.
Regeneration means giving the young people the power to shape their own future.
This is what democracy looks like. Empowered communities and citizens.
Regeneration means restoring our planet's ecosystem,
allowing the living world to flourish once more.
To me, regeneration means...
To me, regeneration means love.
Protection, harmony,
Resilience.
Loving the life that we've been given on this beautiful planet.
Regeneration means knowing the people in my neighborhood
And living in a safe, strong, and caring
community.
Regeneration benefits every person, every living being.
Respeitar, conservar, proteger, cuidar.
We can use what we have in our unique way to take care of this place that we love,
Cuidar.
our home. Regeneration is how we can do that. We're all in this together, man. This is a call to the citizens of this planet who want a better future for all living beings. A call to the regenerators.
I'm striking for climate justice and telling the truth in Russia, but it's dangerous to be a climate activist.
I power all my concerts with 100% renewable energy.
I'm working with farmers to find the best ways to increase soil health and increase biodiversity.
I hold our government accountable for their continuous climate denial and undoubtable support for the fossil fuel industry.
I hike mountains in high heels to build queer community in the outdoors and to advocate for our one true queen, Mother Nature.
We are all being called to come together, to connect, and to regenerate. See, we're moving from an industrial civilization to an ecological civilization. We're all here, alive in this moment, to make this happen. You are the regeneration.
You are the regeneration.
You are the regeneration.
You are the regeneration.
We are the regeneration.
We are the regeneration.
We are the regeneration.
We are the regeneration. Somos a floresta. Somos os rios. Nós somos a regeneração.
This is the regeneration.
So again, a huge thanks to everyone who took part in that film, and really it was made for everyone to share. So the film will be now available on our YouTube channels, on other people's YouTube channels, on social media as well. So we'd encourage you all to share it with your networks and get people up to speed on what this regeneration movement is all about. But it's more than that. We also would love you to take action. And if you don't really know where to start, we encourage you to head to theregenerators.org, which is a platform that we've only recently launched. And we've really broken down into about 11 areas, the key areas we need to regenerate the planet. So that includes reviving soils, healing habitats, moving lightly, regenerating ourselves and our communities, harmonizing the system. Whatever it is that you're interested in, you can go there, learn in more detail what it involves, but more importantly, you're then sent off to take action. And we've linked up with hundreds of organizations around the world that can help you to take action in a particular area that you're passionate about. And if you really don't know where to start, you'll see a button on our website that says Start Regenerating or Become a Regenerator. If you just click that button, we'll ask you some questions about what you are interested in and then help steer you to those actions that you can take. And we're very proud that we've had over 40,000 people have already activated that plan and have begun their regenerative journey. So get involved, join them, meet up with those, talk to them online as well, and become part of this thriving regenerative community. You can also go to Paul's terrific website, which is regeneration.org as well for even more information and ways to take action, particularly if you're in the US right now. That's really got some wonderful examples there of what you can do to take action. And also I'd like to mention that we're working with a group called Climate Action Systems on a new app called the Planet app. And really it's a social action platform as opposed to social media. It's really been designed to collaborate and cross-pollinate, bring together people in little pods in their area of interest to meet up with other people who are like-minded and then suggest ways to organise and to take action. But it's very early stage right now. It's an emergent ecosystem, much like nature works. So I'd encourage anyone to go in there and have a look, set up a pod, join a pod that you might already be interested in. And I think together over the next couple of years, we can really turn it into something very special. So it is called Planet. And the organisers there have asked me also if anyone is interested in volunteering to help out with that Planet app. It's already been built, but just to do some work, that'd be fantastic. If you could write to us, hello@regenstudios.com, hello@regenstudios.com, and we'll pass that on. Anyone really that wants to get involved and volunteer in some capacity, all of us could use the work because there's a lot of work to do and we'd love to have the skills that you might have to offer. So we'll open up now to some questions. I'll invite the panelists to put their microphones and cameras back on. and we might get to some of the questions that have already come through. I'll just turn on my chat so I can see some of them. Okay, well, first question is from Becca Dakini, and maybe someone on the panel can take this one, but Christy, maybe we'll start with you. How do you think that just everyday people can become regenerators? What's a way that people can get involved that you think, that you recommend to people?
I would say like a really easy way is to just get involved with local environmental justice organizations that are led by Black, Indigenous, and people of color. There's so many resources now. If you look up environmental justice organizations, especially if you live here in the US, there's a lot more resources on looking up, you know, what that looks like. I would say also trying to connect with your community. In general, I know it's mentioned in the film, getting to know your neighbors, but even if it's not that, like even getting to know your classmates, if you're a student, figuring out like how you can create these spaces for brainstorming, like we were saying, visioning, coming up with maybe even what existing solutions already exist and trying to mobilize, like you just mentioned, like this app that exists, or there's all these nonprofits, organizations, and initiatives that already exist. So it doesn't mean you need to like create something from scratch. I know, again, like people feel so intimidated, like, do I start my own thing? It's like, actually, there's so many people already working on so many initiatives. We don't need more new things. We need more collective action building, and we need more coalition building. And so it'd be really great, especially for young people and folks that have been in, you know, the climate movement for a longer time, different generations coming together and having more of that, you know, diverse intergenerational dialogue, intercultural dialogue, people from the global North and the global South, folks who are non-Indigenous and Indigenous, being able to create more active listening sessions. And again, that requires intention, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm just going to come in and extract this information from you. It's like, oh, I want to build a relationship. I want to get to know you. I want to genuinely be a friend and listen and learn from each other. And it needs, again, to be this symbiotic relationship. And so I'd say becoming a regenerator is starting to operate your life thinking about that, thinking about how all of your actions are operating in symbiosis with both the natural environment as well as the people around you. And that doesn't require a lot of like, just like, you know, every single action that like is perfectly environmentalist or perfectly sustainable. It's how you relate to people and how you build those relationships intentionally, I think, is actually how we start creating these new communities and come up with solutions that actually work for the collective. That just all came out, but that's how I feel about it.
Thank God that came out. Thank you, Christy. That was beautiful. Dominic, I know you could probably add some value to this, because regeneration really is about your place, isn't it? It's starting in your place. Rather than thinking too much existentially or the big picture stuff, sometimes it's as simple as, can you name the birds that wake you up in the morning? Can you identify the tree that might be in your front yard or on your way to work? And teaching your kids that to build that connection. Can you develop and just talk a bit more about that, of what regeneration means and how localized it can be?
Absolutely, absolutely. We often get overwhelmed by the bigness of the problems because we think we need to come with a big solution. And actually, if all of us just do a little bit to contribute to our place, we will solve these problems. Yes, we need great thinkers such as Paul and Laura and other people that you've mentioned that bring those ideas together. But for us average, normal people, all we need to do is see what we can do in our backyard, see what we can do in our local parks, see what we can do to support our local schools, our artists, our local systems, food, celebrations, but really, how can we help our neighbours and start with that? It really is starting locally and not feeling overwhelmed by the size of it.
Thanks, Dom. Paul, a question's coming here that I think would be great for you. It's around the communication challenge of this, and I guess where we might have, I guess the environmental movement might have let itself down around some language and communication that maybe in the past. What's an important lesson to learn from that so that we can use the right language and bring more people into this movement? I think you're still on mute, Paul.
You're so right. I mean, the way the climate movement, I put that in air quotes, but has been communicated came from science, and it was about future existential threat, and it didn't work 50, 40 years ago, so basically it kept getting more pronounced. But the language has been, as an English major, has been really shooting itself in the foot, because basically it's about fighting and tackling and combating, and about climate. You know, the climate's perfect. It can never be anything but perfect, because and they're fighting change. To change, it's always going to change. Thank God, or we wouldn't have seasons and food and strawberries and salmon. Come on. So we use this language of othering. We're othering the problem as if it's out there somewhere, and we're going to direct air capture. We're going to do this, and we're going to have some technology to fix it. And what is it? It doesn't exist. It's us. I mean, and the biosphere and the atmosphere are the same thing, just different aspects of course. You know, it's 15 miles, you know, thick. And so it's actually about coming home and realizing, and Dominique's comments spot on. The last thing you want to do is try to save the earth. You're going to have a really screwed up life. I mean, you'll fail, first of all, and it's too much to take to go to bed with. But when you start to celebrate, you know, where you are, and who you're with, and the way you heal any system is to connect more of it to itself, whether it's a immune system, an ecosystem, you know, a social system, economic system. And that's what Christy and Dominique are talking about, you know, and it's just, and it's fun. And this idea that somehow, you know, if we're going to fix the climate, it's like, you know, it doesn't work. Less than 1% of humanity is doing anything after 50 years. Less than 1%. How did that happen? It happened because the way we've been talking about it has been about facts, as if facts would change people. Facts do not change people. Right? Only stories change people.
Beautiful. And AY, I know there's a question here around getting governments and larger institutions to understand this and take action. I know the last couple of years you've, I guess, been welcomed into the halls of many a UN conversation or an event. What's your insights from that? Do you feel it is hopeless in terms of what's happening in there? Do you feel there's enough people trying to take it seriously? They're obviously just blocked because of all the systemic incentives and barriers that we have. But what's your take on being at that sort of level, in that institution? What's your insights from that?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm blessed to be in all these high-level rooms and meeting with all these high-level people. And then, of course, I spent a lot of this year, a couple of weeks in Egypt at COP27. So I was able to just be at the forefront of all of that, right? And witnessing all the different parties around the world at a conference, talking, not quite coming to something. I think a lot. You know, that's how that, Damon. These rooms and these high level people, and oh my God, these celebrities that are so cool that everyone wants a photo, and they're all doing this stuff. And you know, then we had the youth pavilion. You know, it was the first ever youth-led pavilion in the history of COP, led by my homie Saad, where I also kind of became like a co-music director and kind of like watched this groundswell of Gen Z and millennials come together and like literally not just connect to each other, but, you know, formulate partnerships that happen in 5 minutes, and we're taking actions with these smaller organizations. And we saw a movement that was unlike anything other, and attracted the Ellie Gouldings of the world and the Nigel Toppings and all of these people, right? I mean, I'll never forget singing the Regeneration Anthem with and a whole bunch of other, you know, big people or whatever, but we were all gathered together as one with my African brothers. And, you know, that's where I saw change. I saw change with the youth. I see change when I talk to people and they're like, you know, when I go back home, I'm going to bring this concept here. I'm going to do this X thing. I'm going to do Y. I'm going to spend more time in nature. I'm going to spend more time donating my time at these organizations. To be honest, you know, that's the answer I give people, man. I'll leave it at this. we are all humans. No matter how rich or poor we are, we all. If I cut you, you're gonna bleed red. And I think as humans, as these outlets, I say everyone's an outlet. We can all take a step every day toward regeneration. We can take an action. We can use our passions to do that. And I just think we should take more responsibility to do that. And maybe less energy sometimes. We need people to fight the fight. The politicals. We need people to take the policy is a huge thing, but what can you do? And I think we can do a lot.
Beautiful, mate. And I totally agree. I think that we are seeing the beginnings of an unraveling of the system, and the world's going to look very different in the years and the decades ahead. And we think that we have an illusion of choice, but I think the ecology, our material boundaries, climate is going to force a lot of change that people aren't quite ready to see. So the best thing we can all do is prepare that way, prepare the pathway, so when it does start to happen, we can just bring more people across and reassure them that these solutions are available and a better world is available that isn't our current system. Paul, I think there's quite a few questions that have come in. I can't probably ignore around, obviously, the agriculture question at the moment, meat versus no meat life. Maybe because this has been our podcast or chat on its own, but maybe can you just talk quickly about the nuance that is missing in what has become a very binary debate? And you and I have both met and experienced and visited many farm lands and practices that are bringing life back to their landscapes, but are using animals in a really meaningful and important way.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the debate too, and it's so well intended, by the way. So I don't know anybody's sincerity or their motives and their commitments. I think we should go back a little bit though, which is people say, what could I do right away? What can I do tomorrow? And the number one thing that people can do is pay attention to their food. Where does it come from? What are they eating? Who produced it? What were they doing? And how did they treat the land or the water or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then what are you eating? Because in the United States, we spend $4 trillion, 20% of our GDP on healthcare caused by ultra-processed food and other crap and chemicals that people are inhaling, eating, swallowing. And so we can do a lot of things if we start to change ourselves first and that relationship to food. And then where does it come from? And the meat industry, the dairy industry as it's presently started, the most deforming and awful and horrific industries that has ever been created. And I dare anyone to go to an abattoir. I dare anybody to go near anything that has to do with CAFOs and so forth and be the same person, and that has to be obliterated. It has to be that has to be banned. You can't treat the living world that way. And those animals are the living world, and they have, so okay. In terms of the land, what understood is you can't take animals off grasslands. You can't take them away from the land. The land will fail because they co-evolved. And so we have to respect that. So we have to decide, what do we want to do with that land and so forth. And really, we want it to be like the Serengeti, like the Buffalo Commons, like where animals were free to roam and migrate and go up and down, following the food and the grasses and the rains and so forth. And that restores the land, that regenerates the land and so forth. And you can mimic that in smaller areas by, advanced paddock grazing and different ways, all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, I think you're seeing regenerative, the word regenerative being used as a kind of a placeholder for, you don't have to change, if it may make a little adjustments here, then you're, I don't think that's true at all. But I do think that we have to be, for those who want to be vegan, like, good on you and fantastic. But as you move further north or south, away from the equator, equatorial regions, you can't ask an Inuit to be a vegan. So we have to have some cultural respect here for the mountain-dwelling people, for the people who've dwelt, the indigenous people who've been in the northern latitudes and so forth. And so I think we need to back off to impose what we believe to be the right thing on other people. like I said, I'll just stop right there. But when it comes to CAFOs and how we treat industrialized meat, well, that has to stop.
Yeah, there are a lot of landmines potentially as we move forward. And I see even groups now that are doing terrific regenerative work, but sometimes it is just planting the same species of tree in one area and thinking that that's creating a habitat, or the way that carbon credits are sort of being misused in some parts of the world now. So we're going to have to step carefully through this and make sure we humanize this whole project. I think that's a key element of regeneration, is that we stay with love and care and respect for each other, and we help people to understand, as opposed to demonizing them or pointing the finger and blaming them, because as we know in the current system, that's just not helpful to anyone. I know we've only got time for a couple more questions. So there's a question here around how do people create something like local meetups and groups for regenerators in their region. That's a great question. So in Australia, I can speak to, it's been wonderful to see how many regen groups are forming here. There's a Regen Melbourne that has a couple of terrific goals, and one of them is to make the river, the Yarra that runs through Melbourne, swimmable by 2030. So that's a terrific regeneration project. There's a Regen Sydney, there's a Regen Gippsland, Regen Tasmania. They're all starting to form. I know there's probably similar, Paul, you've got drawdown groups around America. They could easily become regeneration groups. I think it's starting to happen.
They've all the regen.
Right, okay.
Regen Alberta, Regen Victoria, Regen Toronto, Regen, I mean, they all changed the region. Yeah.
Fantastic. And so the goal here too is to make sure that we all stay connected, we all stay collaborating and sharing ideas and learning from each other. And certainly the ones that are taking place in Australia, it's just wonderful, because the minute the talk starts, there is a sense of respect and value for each other. No matter who's on that call, no matter what their position is, everyone listens and does it in a really careful way. So that's a really great tenet of regeneration moving forward. I might just get a final statement from everyone before we go to AY and play the song, because it's come through a couple of times here. But people have asked about, with everything that's going on, this rapacious growth machine we have, all the doomsday narratives, how do people talk to students, to each other about this regeneration movement, to keep it positive and to keep people inspired? So we might go around. Christy, if you want to start, what's just a nice simple message that people can take away about what this regeneration movement means?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, to sum it all up, I think it comes back to reconnection, and you just have to accept that maybe whether that you need to rewatch this film a few times or read some more, that maybe you're not going to get it right away, and that's okay. You don't need to be an expert. I hope if anything came out of this whole talk is you do not need to be an expert to get in this space. We need less experts and we need more solutionaries, and that's you. That's you in the audience right now. And I think, for myself, like, I wasn't really in climate. I wasn't really in this space. And now I am a quote unquote expert in this space because I listened to that curiosity. I followed my heart. And now, I'm even helping people with green jobs in the green economy. And I think we have to keep following those threads of what we're passionate about, how we're creating more access and opportunities to those who don't have the privilege to be on calls like this, to have resources like this. Always give back. Always think about reciprocity, circularity, and how you're navigating this world with intention. Thank you.
Wow.
Beautiful. Thanks, Christy.
Really nice.
AY, do you have something to offer?
Yeah. Just last words, basically.
Yeah.
Let's see. First of all, Christy, you're amazing. Yo, everyone on here is dope. I wish I actually met all the other people that were in the film, but it's 2022, so we do things by Zoom. I'm just gonna say the same stuff I've been saying. Yo, like, what changed my life is the thought of, like, that Paul, taught me, was like, how can I bring life? So literally, before I make a choice, I'm like, how does this bring life? How does this, which is a crazy idea, right? Like, how can I take a shower and bring life to more people? It's so interesting, but then it gets you thinking, right? Then you're like thinking about, well, how can I help other people get showers? It's just a whole different concept, and I think that's really cool. Also, hey, we're all allies for change, plug into each other. the community level, look at us globally plugged in together right now, right? We can power change. And so, yeah, Paul, like you said, right, this is going to keep growing. So let's plug more people into the regeneration.
You're a star, AY. Paul, do you want a message about the positivity or how people can share this message?
My time over to Dominique, because I haven't heard enough from her. I just love when I hear from Dominique. And what Chrissy said, she got it: curiosity, heart, and listening. I mean, that's it. First of all, be curious, heart, and listen to others. I mean, that's really, it's a 2-year-old can do that, I mean, so you don't need to be an expert automatically. And so it's really about coming home. And home, this is home right here. It's called the heart, and this is home. And so, but our home is ourselves too, in our community or places. And I just love what you just said, AY, about, how can I create more life by, I'm taking a shower. Wow, it's not, oh, what can I do to get more people to have access to clean water and showers? So it's just that way of just like seeing the world, am I creating more life or less? Okay, I don't want to do less. So then you may not know what to do right away, but at least you're looking at it, you're examining it, you're thinking about it, going, okay, I hadn't thought of it that way before. So it's really like a lens, like putting on magic glasses, It's a framework for understanding and seeing the world in a way that always leads you to something positive, that's generous, that's abundant, that is connected, as opposed to, and Christy pointed this out earlier, reading, if you read the Post and you read the Guardian every day, you probably need a therapist pretty soon. It's good science, neuroscience, in the terms of you just can't take that amount of bad information that long and be functional and capable. And so, yeah, like, and be around people who light you up. So I'm around you, AY.
Thanks, Paul. And final word from you, Dom.
Very quick, because I can't wait to hear AJ's music, AY music. So I would just refer everyone to the hummingbird story, African hummingbird story. Do what you can. Big or small you are, just do what you can, because we all have a contribution to make. And the more we contribute to the system, the stronger it gets. Thank you for all your contribution.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dominique. Well, we've got a very special treat to go here from AY. He has written a regeneration anthem, which, good on you, mate. It's fun. It's wonderful. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks for all the team behind the scenes that allowed this to happen. Again, if you don't know where to start, if you're very new, I encourage you, go to regenerators.org, hit start regenerating. There's a button right there, and we'll ask you those questions about how you can get involved and offer up any number of things for you to do and actions for you to take. So I think we're going to, AY, do you want to give us a little brief introduction about this song before we play it?
Yeah, just at the end of the day, I have this belief like everyone plugged into each other can power change. And honestly, man, this was hugely inspired by Paul Hawken, but I think I say that in here, So no, here, this is what I'll say. I'll say this. I remember when you, Damon, bought me a meal in New York City before I was young leader. And I'll never forget that, because I don't think and you regenerated my spirit. I don't think you know that. And you actually, I think, connected me to Paul, or vice versa. I can't even freaking remember, one of you two. But it all led to a song like this. And so thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, everyone. And to go out with, we give you AY and the regeneration anthem. I'll get you to turn your cameras off, everyone on the panel.
Dude, I've been reading this book called The Regeneration, and it's by this dude named Paul Hawken, and it's all about like regenerations, like kind of like recreating all that was lost, and how like humans and nature, we have to come together, right, to like power, like change and make this happen. And so I made a song. Like I think it could be like the actual the anthem. Let me show you, man. I'll show you the song really quick on here real fast.
What's that?
Oh, yo, this is the battery tour, bro. Like, you know, I actually power, well, this is solar, and I store energy in batteries, and that's why it's called the battery tour. And I use it to power all my concerts. I also made the whole album, all this music I'm making off of renewable energy, off of this thing. So here, let me show you, dude. I'll just like walk you through the record because like you got to really feel the lyrics and stuff. And it's all about changing the world. Right? And if anyone's listening, they just, you know, it's the vibe, you know what I'm saying? You feel me, bro? You know? Oh, sister, mister, look who's made our minds up. We can't make our minds up, we gotta come together. I can't find the reasons not to give up. All the change makers, we can't give up, you know? Teachers, leaders, dreamers, let's go. Take the right away, leave the bed and make it. We can change the world. Is that a total? We can change the world. We'll shine a light back on. We can change the world. So we got to come together now. We got to come together now. See, I don't like it anymore than you do. But everyone's ignorant, ignorance that bliss is for. We can't avoid these issues, we gotta come together. So it's about time we humble and realize that we are one and the same, unique and one of a kind. Cause bright days come ahead when we join together. Put your best foot forward, go and make an effort. This is AY, I spoke to Akon, Marvin Gaye, me in the grapevine. Let's have a great time, let's change the world, influence great minds. I'm trying to paint my version of Picasso. This is colossal, so they always take the right away. Leave the bed and keep it. We can change the world. Is that right? We can change the world. We'll shine a light back on. We can change the world. Yo, yeah, I know. I mean, I think it could be like an anthem for something, right? Like, I'm telling you, everybody's an outlet. If we can all just take a step toward regeneration, we can make it happen. Yeah, that's it, man.